The importance of psychology. The idea of psychology in the West is very much degraded. Psychology is the science of sciences, but in the West it is placed upon the same plane as all other sciences. That is, it is judged by the same criterion utility. How much practical benefit will it do to humanity? How much will it add to our rapidly growing happiness? How much will it detract from our rapidly increasing pain? Such is the criterion by which everything is judged in the West. People seem to forget that about 90% of all our knowledge cannot, in the very nature of things, be applied in a practical way to add to our material happiness or to lessen our misery. Only the smallest fraction of our scientific knowledge can have any such practical application to our daily lives. This is so because only an infinitely small percentage of our conscious mind is on the sensuous plane. We have just a little bit of sensuous consciousness and imagine that to be our entire mind and life. But as a matter of fact, it is but a drop in the mighty ocean of subconscious mind. If all there is of us were a bundle of sense perceptions, all the knowledge we could gain could be utilized in the gratification of our sense pleasures. But fortunately, such is not the case. As we get further and further away from the animal state, our sense pleasures become less and less, and our enjoyment, in a rapidly increasing consciousness of scientific and psychological knowledge, becomes more and more intense, and knowledge for the sake of knowledge, regardless of the amount of sense pleasures it may conduce to, becomes the supreme pleasure of the mind. But even taking the Western idea of utility as a criterion by which to judge, psychology, by such a standard even, is the science of sciences. Why? We are all slaves to our senses, slaves to our own minds, conscious and subconscious. The reason why a criminal is a criminal is not because he desires to be one, but because he has not his mind under control, and is therefore a slave to his own conscious and subconscious mind, and to the mind of everybody else. He must follow the dominant trend of his own mind. He cannot help it. He is forced onward in spite of himself, in spite of his own better promptings, his own better nature. He is forced to obey the dominant mandate of his own mind. Poor man, he cannot help himself. We see this in our own lives constantly. We are constantly doing things against the better side of our nature, and afterwards we upbraid ourselves for so doing and wonder what we could have been thinking of, how we could do such a thing. Yet again and again we do it, and again we suffer for it and upbraid ourselves. At the time, perhaps, we think we desire to do it, but we only desire it because we are forced to desire it. We are forced onward. We are helpless. We are all slaves to our own and to everybody else's mind. Whether we are good or bad, that makes no difference. We are led here and there because we cannot help ourselves. We say we think, we do, etc. It is not so. We think because we have to think. We act because we have to. We are slaves to ourselves and to others. Deep down in our subconscious mind are stored up all the thoughts and acts of the past, not only of this life, but of all other lives we have lived. This great boundless ocean of subjective mind is full of all the thoughts and actions of the past. Each one of these is striving to be recognized, pushing outward for expression, surging, wave after wave, out upon the objective mind, the conscious mind. These thoughts, the stored up energy we take for natural desires, talents, etc., it is because we do not realize their true origin. We obey them blindly, unquestioningly, and slavery, the most helpless kind of slavery, is the result, and we call ourselves free. Free! We who cannot for a moment govern our own minds, nay, cannot hold our minds on a subject, focus it on a point to the exclusion of everything else for a moment, yet we call ourselves free. Think of it. We cannot do as we know we ought to do even for a very short space of time. Some sense desire will crop up, and immediately we obey it. Our conscience smites us for such weakness, but again and again we do it. We are always doing it. We cannot live up to a high standard of life, try as we will. The ghosts of past thoughts, past lives hold us down. All the misery of the world is caused by this slavery to the senses, our inability to rise above the sense life, The striving for physical pleasures is the cause of all the horrors and miseries in the world. It is the science of psychology that teaches us to hold in check the wild gyrations of the mind, place it under the control of the will, and thus free ourselves from its tyrannous mandates. Psychology is therefore the science of sciences, without which all sciences and all other knowledge are worthless. The mind uncontrolled and unguided will drag us down, down forever, rend us, kill us, and the mind controlled and guided will save us, free us. So it must be controlled, and psychology teaches us how to do it. To study and analyze any material science, sufficient data are obtained. These facts are studied and analyzed, and a knowledge of the science is the result. But in the study and analysis of the mind, there are no data, no facts acquired from without, such as are equally at the command of all. The mind is analyzed by itself. The greatest science, therefore, is the science of the mind, the science of psychology. In the West, the powers of the mind, especially unusual powers, are looked upon as bordering on witchcraft and mysticism. The study of higher psychology has been retarded by its being identified with mere alleged psychic phenomena, as is done by some mystery-mongering order of Hindu fakirs. Physicists obtain pretty much the same results the world over. They do not differ in their general facts, nor in the results which naturally follow from such facts. This is because the data of physical science are obtainable by all and are universally recognized, and the results are logical conclusions based upon these universally recognized facts. In the realm of the mind, it is different. Here there are no data, no facts observable by the physical senses, and no universally recognized materials, therefore, from which to build a system of psychology after their being equally experimented upon by all who study the mind. Deep, deep within is the soul, the essential man, the Atman. Turn the mind inward and become united to that, and from that standpoint of stability, the gyrations of the mind can be watched and facts observed, which are to be found in all persons. Such facts, such data, are to be found by those who go deep enough, and only by such. Among that large class of self-styled mystics the world over, there is a great difference of opinion as to the mind, its nature, powers, etc. This is because such people do not go deep enough. They have noticed some little activity of their own and others' minds, and without knowing anything about the real character of such superficial manifestations, have published them as facts universal in their application, and every religious and mystical crank has facts, data, etc., which he claims are reliable criteria for investigation, but which are in fact nothing more or less than his own imaginings. If you intend to study the mind, you must have systematic training. You must practice to bring the mind under your control, to attain to that consciousness from which you will be able to study the mind and remain unmoved by any of its wild gyrations. Otherwise, the facts observed will not be reliable. They will not apply to all people, and therefore will not be truly facts or data at all. Among that class who have gone deeply into the study of the mind, the facts observed have been the same, no matter in what part of the world such persons may be or what religious belief they may have. The results obtained by all who go deep enough into the mind are the same. The mind operates by perception and impulsion. For instance, the rays of the light enter by eyes, are carried by the nerves to the brain, and still I do not see the light. The brain then conveys the impulse to the mind, but yet I do not see the light. The mind then reacts, and the light flashes across the mind. The mind's reaction is impulsion, and as a result, the eye perceives the object. To control the mind, you must go deep down into the subconscious mind, classify and arrange in order all the different impressions, thoughts, etc. stored up there, and control them. This is the first step. By the control of the subconscious mind, you get control over the conscious.